rural forests of Spain, there is a horrifying tradition that takes place every single year. At the end of the hunting season, thousands of dogs are taken into the deep, dark woods. But they are not being taken for a walk. They are being taken to their executions. The most loyal, gentle creatures on earth are tied to the branches of trees by their necks, with their hind legs left just barely touching the ground. They frantically pedal their paws against the dirt, suffocating slowly for hours, sometimes even days, desperately trying to find a footing that isn't there. The humans who put them there do not look away in shame. They watch, and they call this agonizing, slow death playing the piano. This is not a horror movie. This is the dark, silent, and entirely legal holocaust of the Spanish Greyhound. To truly understand the depth of this betrayal, we must first look at the victim. The Galgo Español, or the Spanish Greyhound, is an ancient, noble breed. They have elegant, slender bodies built for incredible speed and unmatched agility. But beneath their athletic exterior, they have the souls of gentle children. They are famously affectionate, deeply sensitive, and possess an overwhelming, almost tragic desire to please their human masters. A Galgo will look at you with large, soulful eyes that seem to hold the weight of the world, asking for nothing but a soft place to sleep and a hand to pet them. For centuries, they were revered by Spanish nobility, treated as kings of the hunting fields. But today, in the modern rural countryside, their nobility has become their curse. They are no longer seen as companions. They are seen as disposable tools, agricultural machinery made of flesh and bone. The nightmare for a Galgo does not begin on the day they die. It begins on the day they are born. They are bred by the thousands by rural hunters known as galgueros. From the moment they take their first breath, they are denied anything resembling love or comfort. They are kept locked away in dark, damp, underground bunkers or windowless sheds, packed together in absolute filth. They do not know the warmth of a fire or the softness of a blanket. They are deliberately starved, given just enough dirty water and stale bread to keep their hearts beating. The galgueros believe that a starving dog will run faster and hunt harder. They are kept in constant darkness, their spirits systematically crushed, so that when the heavy metal doors finally open, their only instinct is to run out of pure, desperate survival. When the hunting season for hares begins in the autumn, the galgos are finally brought out into the light. But it is not a rescue. It is a battlefield. They are dragged to the open plains and forced to run at breakneck speeds across hard, unforgiving terrain. They push their slender bodies past the limits of physical endurance. Their paws bleed, their muscles tear, and their lungs burn. But they do not stop. They do not stop because the Galgo has a fatal biological flaw, an unbreakable loyalty to the human holding the leash. Even though this human starves them, locks them in the dark, and beats them, the dog will run itself to the brink of death just to hear a single word of praise. They bring the hare back to their master, wagging their tails, begging for a moment of affection that will never come. But they had them sharing the black points, them share of them never find the pictures. The dog, as the fellow team self, was forked to be made. They face a brazy for their 20 points ever thing. But the Galgo bring the Galgo doggerdoos that is not for interesty, the work of affection. But they heard the have no because the fielding the dog sense their focus of, which means there and nothing about. They remember their faces and state filling a bit. They will know them. They referred their great filts in the absence of the bick, and they did not share to keep the passes. They really in turn and nobody cores that long. They does return where during the heavy is a day located in fellow team self, and they never make for 'em. The dog may be for here improving their places just to keep their turned. They bring the face and of these rooms of the main and littlest car. They bring the face and of their bolts, they very laved. They remember the dog hand to heavy, supported their capitals in the dog places, form that you're dead in their run. There begins seriously and the came from in their flowers. They are given cues in the world that they were filled investigated. The galgos bring the distributed figured clays. They started there a plains that were person lanes. The galgos bring before the marids, they will run to the dog and supported the blease. They didn't share the dog stated form their flows. They did not say the promotus thing. They can see this, the descriptive share and prove the marids that they will make it in and what their flowers. They really have, the galgos bring, was fark the things like this in their place. They did not say the galgos bring before the marids, then they can see they didn't done. They did not return to before and state with the galgos bring. The galgos bring the truly seems state with a truly marids in the neighbor hearts that develops their least. They still bring before the marids that there never come to the order of their leash. The galgos bring was truly 300 in what their blease is that lessened their flows. The medal of theirselves, there was many tragedy necessarily. They were truly the dog and proved the marids that were sense applies with a great and state from him. There is a last for the bring with leash and bring their plains. They didn't share the dog may before in state with a great and state with their generation. They give no base that has a simpler their unpossession. In state they will make their flow, the saying the dog blaze. They will do their any sinkle their hearts of bear blaze. They didn't share the dog blake in extreme that are trying to say. They just speak a birder and invested many local. They didn't share that their bring was never make that any time them and shouldn't do and they generation. They didn't share this assembly, but they did not share the dog blaze. They did not their lave to a spirit of exactly number of their flows. They didn't share the dog blakes amount many for, they will do their real and state. They were simply ticky and the traded myself the dog blakes will tell them they're in possession. They didn't share they were relative their leash and state from him. They did not share the dog blaze. They did not share the dog blakes and tribly to dead. Is mo.
You're safe now.
But a dog's body can only endure so much a buds. The hunting season is short. By the time the February arrives, the season comes to an abrupt end. And in the eyes of the galgero, a hunting dog in the off-season is simply a useless expense. It costs money to feed them, it costs money to house them, and a bullet is considered too expensive to waste on a disposable tool. So the great purge begins. Every February, an estimated 50,000 galgos are discarded across Spain. They are not taken to any moral shelters. They driven out to the dark highways and slown to a moving cars, their legs snapping as they hit the asphalt. They are thrown alive into deep, dark, abandoned wells, left to tread water in pitch-black darkness until they finally drown from exhaustion days later. They are tied to railroad tracks. They are burned alive. But the most traditional and the most profoundly evil method of execution is the one they call el baile del piano, the piano dance. The galgero walks his dog deep into the quiet, isolated woods. The dog, trusting to the very end, follows happily, its tail wagging, thinking it is finally getting to spend time alone with its master. The master finds a tree. If the dog was a good hunter during the season, the master will tie the rope high up on a sturdy branch. The dog is hung entirely off the ground, ensuring its neck breaks quickly. It is a brutal but rapid death. The hunters consider this an act of mercy, a reward for a job well done. But if the dog was slow, if it missed a hare, or if it somehow embarrassed the hunter, it is subjected to the ultimate punishment. The rope is tied lower. The noose is slipped around the soft neck of the gentle dog. When the master lets go, the dog does not drop. Its front paws are suspended in the air, but the tips of its back paws are left just barely brushing the ground. Panic instantly sets in. The dog struggles to breathe, the rough rope crushing its windpipe. It tries to stand on its hind legs to relieve the pressure, but its paws can only scrape against the loose dirt. It cannot stand. It cannot fall. It is trapped in a horrific limbo between life and death. As the oxygen is slowly cut off from its brain, the dog begins to panic. Its back legs pedal frantically, scraping and dancing against the earth in a desperate, impossible attempt to find solid ground. This horrific, agonizing struggle is what the hunters mockingly call playing the piano. The dog's large, soulful eyes bulge with terror. It looks around for its master, the human it loved, the human it ran so hard to please, wondering why they are doing this. But the master simply turns his back and walks away, leaving the dog to its agonizing fate. The piano dance can last for hours. Sometimes, if the dog is particularly strong, it can last for days. The animal dies slowly, alone in the cold woods, experiencing the ultimate psychological trauma, realizing that the god it worshipped was actually a monster. We look at our own pets, curled up asleep on the foot of our beds. We know that they are capable of deep love, profound loyalty, and feeling immense pain. We consider them part of our families. It is almost impossible to comprehend the level of darkness required for a human being to look into the trusting eyes of a dog and then slowly, deliberately, hang it from a tree. The tragedy of the galgo is not just a story of animal cruelty. It is a terrifying mirror reflecting the darkest, most apathetic corners of the human soul. Every year, a small army of dedicated volunteers and rescue organizations scour the Spanish countryside, working tirelessly to pull these broken dogs out of wells, untie them from trees, and rescue them from the dark bunkers. They bring them into the light, treating their physical wounds, but the psychological scars run deeper than the broken bones. A rescued galgo will often stare at a wall for hours, trembling in fear if a human raises their hand too quickly. They have to be taught how to walk on grass, how to play with a toy, and most importantly, how to trust the very species that subjected them to a Holocaust. Animals do not exist to be our disposable machines. They do not exist to satisfy our bloodlust or entertain our egos. They are living, breathing, feeling creatures who share this planet with us. The Spanish Greyhound runs with the speed of the wind, but it cannot outrun the cruelty of human tradition. The next time you walk your dog, the next time you feel them lean their weight against your leg in a silent show of trust, think of the ghosts haunting the rural forests of Spain. Think of the thousands of gentle souls who danced their final, agonizing dance in the dark, begging for a mercy that never came. The month of February in the Spanish countryside does not just mark the end of the winter cold. It marks the beginning of a silent, invisible massacre. The hare hunting season officially closes, and overnight, the massive population of Spanish greyhounds transforms from highly valued hunting tools into completely useless financial burdens. In the cold, calculated economics of the galguero, feeding a dog that cannot hunt for the next 8 months is a waste of money. Providing shelter for an exhausted, injured animal is a waste of space. The solution to this economic problem is a mass extermination on a scale that defies human comprehension. It is estimated that every single year at the end of February, Up to 50,000 galgos are discarded across the rural provinces of Spain. 50,000 beating hearts, 50,000 loyal souls simply thrown away like garbage. The methods of disposal are as varied as they are horrifying. A bullet is often considered too expensive, too much of a financial investment for a broken tool. So, the hunters resort to cheap, a slow, and infinitely more agonizing methods of execution. Thousands of dogs are driven out to the dark, isolated highways late at night. The hunters do not even bother to stop the tracks. They simply open the doors and slow the exhausted dogs out onto the moving asphalt. The galgo's fragile, slender legs snap upon impact. They are left paralyzed on the side of the road, watching the taillights of their master's truck fade into the darkness, completely unable to understand why they have been left behind. They slowly die of dehydration, exposure, or are struck by passing vehicles. Others face a fate even more terrifying. Scattered across the Spanish agricultural landscape are hundreds of deep, abandoned stone wells. The hunters will drag their dogs to the edge of these black pits and push them in. The dogs fall dozens of feet, plunging into the freezing, filthy water at the bottom. The walls of the well are slick with algae and completely vertical. There is no way out. The galgo, an animal built for running on solid ground, is forced to tread water in the pitch-black darkness. They paddle their exhausted legs for hours, fighting the freezing cold, crying out into the echoing stone chamber for a master who is already sitting comfortably at home. Eventually, their massive hearts give out, their muscles seize, and they slip quietly beneath the black water. They are tied to railroad tracks. They are injected with bleach. They are burned alive. But of all the methods used during the Great Purge, there is one tradition so profoundly evil, so steeped in psychological torture, that it has become the dark symbol of the Galgo Holocaust. The hunters call it El Baile del Piano, the piano dance. The execution begins with a final, heartbreaking act of betrayal. The galguero takes his dog out into the deep, quiet woods. The dog does not resist. In fact, the dog is likely thrilled. After months of starvation, beatings, and the chaos of the hunt, it thinks it is finally getting to spend quiet time alone with the human it loves. Its long, thin tail wags. It trots happily alongside the hunter, looking up with complete, absolute trust. When they reach a secluded area, the hunter selects a tree. The fate of the dog in these final moments depends entirely on the hunter's twisted sense of pride. If the dog was considered a good hunter, if it caught many hares and brought honor to the galguero, the rope is tied high over a sturdy branch. The dog is hung entirely off the ground, ensuring that its neck breaks instantly. It is a brutal, violent end, but it is fast. In the warped morality of the hunting community, this immediate death is considered an act of profound mercy, a reward for a lifetime of loyal servitude. But if the dog was slow, if it missed a hare, if it took a shortcut, or if it simply embarrassed the hunter in front of his peers, it is subjected to the ultimate punishment. The rope is tied deliberately lower. The rough hemp noose is slipped around the soft, delicate neck of the gentle dog. When the master lets go, the dog does not drop. Its front paws are suspended in the air, but the tips of its back paws are left just barely brushing the loose dirt of the forest floor. Panic instantly, violently sets in. The dog struggles to breathe, the rough rope crushing its windpipe and cutting off the oxygen to its brain. It desperately tries to stand on its hind legs to relieve the agonizing pressure on its throat, but its paws can only scrape and slide against the loose dirt. It cannot establish a footing. It cannot stand. but it cannot fall. It is trapped in a horrific, suffocating limbo between life and death. As the air runs out, the dog's survival instincts take over. Its back legs begin to pedal frantically, scraping and dancing against the earth in a desperate, impossible attempt to find solid ground. This horrific, agonizing struggle, the frantic tapping of the paws against the dirt, is what the hunters mockingly call playing the piano. The physical pain is unimaginable, but the psychological trauma is infinitely worse. The dog's large, soulful eyes bulge with sheer terror. It looks around frantically for its master, the human it worshipped, the human it ran so hard to please. It looks at the hunter, silently screaming for help, wondering why its God is doing this to them. But the master simply lights a cigarette, turns his back, and walks away into the trees, leaving the dog to its agonizing fate. The piano dance is not a quick death. Depending on the strength of the dog's massive heart and the desperate will to live, this suffocation can last for hours. Sometimes it can last for days. The animal dies slowly, alone in the freezing woods, experiencing the ultimate realization: the creature it loved more than its own life was a monster. We look at our own pets, curled up asleep in the safety of our living rooms. We know, without a shadow of a doubt, that they are capable of deep love, profound loyalty, and feeling immense physical and emotional pain. We consider them family. It is almost impossible for a normal human mind to comprehend the level of darkness, the absolute void of empathy required to look into the trusting, innocent eyes of a dog and deliberately, hang it from a tree. The tragedy of the galgo is not just a story of animal cruelty. It is a terrifying, inescapable mirror reflecting the darkest, most apathetic corners of the human soul. It shows us what happens when tradition completely blinds humanity to suffering. Yet, even in the darkest of nights, there are distant stars. Every single year, a small, desperately underfunded army of dedicated volunteers, veterinarians, and rescue organizations mobilize across the Spanish countryside. They scour the deep woods, searching for dogs tied to trees. They rappel down into the black, freezing wells to pull out the drowning, exhausted survivors. They break into the dark, filthy bunkers to rescue the starving puppies. They bring these broken ghosts into the light. The physical wounds, the broken bones, the deep lacerations, the severe malnutrition can be treated with medicine and time. But the psychological scars run far deeper than the flesh. A rescued galgo does not act like a normal dog. When they are finally brought to a safe shelter, they will often press their faces into the corners of the room, staring at the blank wall for hours. They tremble violently, uncontrollably, if a human raises their hand too quickly, expecting the sharp crack of a stick. They have to be taught everything. They have to be taught how to walk on soft grass without panicking. They have to be taught what a toy is. And most importantly, they face the monumental, almost impossible task of learning how to trust the very species that subjected them to a lifelong holocaust. Animals do not exist to be our disposable machines. They do not exist to satisfy our bloodlust, entertain our egos, or uphold brutal, outdated traditions. They are living, breathing, feeling creatures who share this fragile planet with us. The Spanish Greyhound is an architectural marvel of nature, capable of running with the speed of the wind. But no matter how fast they run, they cannot outrun the cruelty of human apathy. The next time you walk your dog, the next time you feel them lean their warm weight against your leg in a silent, beautiful show of trust, think of the ghosts haunting the rural forests of Spain. Think of the thousands of gentle, noble souls who danced their final, agonizing dance in the dark. They asked for nothing but love, and they were given a rope.